Hello, everybody. It is about 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee on this Friday, February 21st. So we'll start out by going with, we know Kash Patel was confirmed yesterday. That's good. It was a 51-49 vote. The two Republican dissenters were Senators Susan Collins and Senators Lisa Murkowski, two of our regulars. But it's good to get through. So, that being said, Trump's cabinet is complete. Besson, Rubio, Kennedy, Hegseth, Lutnick, Bondi, Patel, and Gabbard. And all five of the questionable ones that the Washington Post opposed, Russ vote. Pete Hegseth, Gabbard, RFK, and Kash Patel were all approved. So that's good, they held it on. So, that being said, I wanted to jump in.
It is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, just one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff to then impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies, but EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers of the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American people. It is true that many
And that's it. And I've been saying on previous videos and tweets, etc., that's it. An administrative state that thinks it's just self-serving, right? When these Democrats, particularly and globalists, say, oh, they're against democracy, the whole point of democracy is people voting to elect their leaders. And as Stephen Miller just explained, the Article 2 powers. And the Founding Fathers vested all that power to the elected president for that that executive branch on the top, knowing that he was the only one in the executive branch that was elected. And that the bureaucrats serve at the behest of that elected president, who, as Stephen Miller said, is carrying out the will that he campaigned on. Now, the check on the executive branch is the judicial branch that operates to whether a law is constitutional or not, and that Congress also has a check, has to approve a lot of these things, and it also has the power of the purse, among other things. And that's it. So these people who say democracy, they are viewing in their heads that these institutions, particularly post-World War II, and now post-Cold War with other international institutions and domestic bureaucratic institutions, are a product of democracy. Well, they are product of either executive order or laws passed by Congress. That doesn't make them democratic or not. A communist government has bureaucratic institutions. A fascistic government has bureaucratic institutions. Okay? That has nothing to do with democracy. Democracy is to elect. And that's what the people did. And that election, he's now implementing what he ran on in the executive branch. And there are people not implementing it. So he's firing them for cause. End of story. Okay? This is not hard, folks. Okay, and Steve Miller did a very good job explaining that, so I thought it was important to share with everybody. So, that being said, and remember, like with Doge, Elon Musk is appointed by the president to do his bidding, to go through everything. He's working for the president. The Treasury Department reports to the president. The Social Security Administration reports to the president. He has brought on somebody to do his willing because Donald Trump doesn't have the time himself to go through it all. All right. So that's being said and moving on. Here we go. So this little domestic politics here. President Trump is making America great again. I'm committed to working with him to keep Florida great. An announcement coming soon. This is a retweet by Representative Byron Donalds. I'm hearing that highly respected Congressman Byron Donalds is considering running for governor of Florida, a state that I love and won big in 2016, 2020, and 2024. I know Byron well, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, he goes on there, but I'm not going to read the whole tweet. But basically, he endorses him for governor even before the announcement. Probably knows what's going on. But there's a little power play going on here because the rumor has it is that DeSantis wants his wife, Denise, to run in his stead in Florida. So you're going to have a power struggle. So here Trump and it looks like and Byron Donalds are getting underneath that. So that's it. And then a lot of DeSantis allies are, of course, lining up with Casey, and then a lot of Trump allies are lining up with Byron Donalds. So this could be very interesting. I don't know how a wife, unless she's in the game, is qualified to become the governor of Florida. It'd be one thing if he picked an ally, he's lieutenant governor or something like that, and they have a battle. I just don't see how the wife steps. Now he's done a decent job as governor. Okay, but so we're going to be keeping track, see what's going on this. It's clear. Another political news front is rumors that Nancy Mace will be challenging Lindsey Graham. My position on this is I like. There's some people who complain about certain actions Nancy Mace did earlier in her congressional career, which is relatively short. She first won in 2018. I think, in my opinion, she's an improvement on Lindsey Graham, so I'll probably be supporting that. Lindsey Graham how do you not get an improvement on Lindsey Graham? Especially if you look at his budget going whatever. It's not, and I'm not going to talk about it on this video, but so I thought I'd give you an update on that. Moving on. So this is something I came across. This is very interesting. This is the growth of LNG, liquefied natural gas exports to Europe. Okay? And this goes basically from 2020 and through. You can see a couple of drops here that have to do with economic issues, the start of the Ukraine war, and stuff like that. But what I find interesting is that, because I mentioned videos, we're running at 105% of LNG exports. Okay? The problem is also the terminals. Okay? So the capacity is there, but the problem is because of green policies in Europe, okay, under the Schultz government and Macron, the British government, and others, as well as all the sanctions reducing Russian gas, oil, other energy, there's been a gap to fill in Europe. Okay, now Europe's been finding it from other locations as well, including Russian gas through India that was refined there back into Europe. But this exported LNG could have stayed here in the United States for energy, for reindustrialization, to bring energy costs down. But because of our policies that Europeans have went along with this whole Ukraine war and everything like that, and sanctions, and with the Biden administration, going along with this green BS, okay, we had to export all that extra LNG instead of bringing down energy here for our own citizens. So I thought that was very interesting to show that chart. Moving on a little bit here, this was an article that appeared in Le Monde, and it's about the Ukraine war. So basically, it's an interview with Lieutenant General, I want to get the name right, Romanenko. Basically said that according to his assessment, Europe cannot replace USA. And basically, the University of Bremen believes that at current supplies, if not replaced, if used sparingly, okay, they will last until midsummer or autumn. So there you have the panic and with Zelensky being pissed off about everything that's going on, since he came out. And the other interesting thing is that I liked what Trump did. When Zelensky said 50% of the gas, of the money is not going to where it's supposed to go. Yeah, because a lot of it got funneled back in the United States. So that's why, whether it's going into contractors, into the Beltway, and everything for new orders for defense contractors to replace the equipment we went over there. So, Zelensky thinks, $60 billion is coming to me. Oh, no, I only got 40. Well, where'd the other 20 go? It go there. So he thinks that. Plus all the money laundering and the stealing and selling of American equipment that magically ends up in hands of cartels and other organizations around the world. That's the oligarchs and corruption, siphoning off their little piece. So, now, we're on the Ukraine front and everything. This is the foreign minister of Georgia, a country that I've spoken about extensively on this, on my videos and so forth. So she said, okay, very interesting. Now her name is Maka Bocharishvili. I hope I didn't butcher it too much. She basically said, at the last meeting that we were told that some train was moving, running, and if we didn't get on it on time, our time would never come. Today, I think we all see clearly how disadvantaged could have been for Georgia to be on the same train as the current Ukrainian government. Soon others will also start jumping off the train, heading for the abyss. So what is she basically talking about? If with Ukraine, you had the Maidan in 2014, Color Revolution, U.S. involvement, building up military, and our influences there. She's basically saying that, and we know it through USAID because apparently $111 million found its way into Georgia, whatever, and they got upset about the FARA law, okay, where foreign agents had to register. Then they had the election. There were protests after the election, after Georgia Dream won, which was a nationalist party. She's saying, basically, we resisted Western's influence, and because of that, and we charted our own course, we're not in a war with Russia, okay, that we're looking out for our own citizens' interests, okay, and we are going to be, as of now, stay kind of neutral with relations with all of our neighbors. And she's saying that, thank God, that we did not go down the same route as Ukraine. Okay, so clearly she's recognizing the history and the events leading up to, and they were smart enough over this last year to resist that and to continue down their plan, so they didn't end up the disaster that is Ukraine and the Ukraine war. Now, I wanted to tie this in a little bit with the LNG gas going to Europe, the green restrictions in Europe and so forth, whatever. But this is basically overall industrial production and manufacturing production in Europe. It's got Germany, which we already know what's going on there, Italy, the whole Euro area aggregated there, and France. And this focuses on France because people don't think about it as much, because they still have nuclear power that they rely on heavily. But basically, France is facing a threat of deindustrialization as well. Last year, more factories closed than opened, a situation not seen since 2015, Le Monde writes. The authors of the publication note that in December 2024, the level of industrial production was 8% lower than in pre-pandemic January 2020. Over the past month, 20 factories have already closed in the country. So, do you see, all this ties in, the sanctions on Russia, green policies, all these globalist agendas come in and meet. And it's these institutions that Musk and others, which is why Milei gave him the chainsaw, these globalist corrupt institutions, whether it's NGOs in the United States and the way the backdoor of the USAID worked with their money laundering operation, whether it's NATO, the European Union, they have this vision, and it's all linked to energy, to green energy, to imports, to the sanctions on Russia, and everything like that. And Trump is throwing a wrench into that gravy train for them. And that's the real problem they have. It hurts them ideologically, and it also hurts them in the pocketbook. So I thought that was a pretty interesting. So here's another one that I thought was really good I came across. Okay. This is a chart. Okay. Looks like it's from Goldman Sachs Global Asset with a source being also OPEC and Kepler. Exhibit 1. We believe that OPEC plus crude production targets are now the key restraint on Russia crude production, not sanctions. So if you look at this chart, okay, there has been a reduction, okay, over the last 7 months in Russian crude production. Okay, and they're going to increase and decrease crude production based upon global markets and pricing. Okay. But if you look at this, okay, this chart to the right, okay, this is where is Russian gas, or in this case crude oil, but energy, I'm sure it's similar for gas and other certain exports as well, that the sanctions are involved in. But if you look at it, right before, at the left side of this chart is before the February special military operation started. Now that dark blue is crude exports to Europe, okay? And then as the sanctions came on at the beginning of the war, hard, you see, and Europe has cut them off, while there's still just a little bit going through, mostly to like Hungary and a few other Baltic states that have direct lines. Okay, they basically increased their exports to fill the gap. So India exports looks like they tripled. Turkey looks like they doubled to tripled. China looks like they doubled to tripled in that period. So the overall, if you look at the chart here, it's just about the same exports as right before the beginning of the war in 2022, January, to now. It's about the same. Now there's a slight reduction. So they're saying that it's not these sanctions that cause the problem, because they're still exporting the same amount. It's just the beneficiaries of that Russian oil has changed from a Euro focus to an Eastern focus. Okay? So they think it's the overall marketplace and OPEC plus. So again, go back to the reduction of the chart before I showed you of German industrial production down, and how France is starting to catch up behind it and everything, as well as the chart I showed you of American liquefied natural gas exports going to Europe. You see, the sanctions. So all that these sanctions have done is create an energy shortage and making it expensive that we had to fill the gap for, not lowering energy costs. And remember, energy is the base of everything in terms of the supply chain process and production processes, whether it's food or other forms of even services, plumbers, because they have to drive to your location with gas. Okay? All the way up in the entire production process. Okay? So, because we're exporting that, energy prices stay high in the United States. Because Europeans are paying more money for that gap in other sources than the cheap oil and gas before toppled with the green bullshit. Okay? It's so expensive, it's hurting their consumers the same way in Europe, with inflation and everything, again, going through food, energy, other types of production, and it's getting too expensive to produce. So you're seeing that production go down, and that overall real GDP, as like Germany contracted over the last 2 years, go down. And that hurts the citizens of Europe, it hurts the citizens of the United States. And we can see here that it did not hurt Russia, because it replaced their markets for the goods that the global market wanted, and just shifted it from Europe to the United States. So they're still exporting it, and they are in an industrial position to reduce crude if necessary to keep a price that is beneficial to them. So I just wanted to show you how all this kind of ties in. Now, a little quick battle update. This is the Russians launched a little mini attack. This is in the Sumy direction that abuts near the Kursk region here. The name of the town over here is called Sverdkilova, and they're going after a town called Novichnaya to the southwest. Now, what's interesting to this is the area where Ukraine uses as a supply route to resupply their forces or reinforce their forces in that ever-shrinking Kursk bulge that about 70% of the Kursk area has been retaken by Russia. So that's going to make it difficult for Ukraine to hold on to the territory. And we'll probably have to pull back and focus defending this area while the Russians continue to push in Kursk, which will probably further accelerate the expulsion of the Ukrainians off of Russian proper territory in the region of Kursk. So,
я исхожу из того, что слова имеют, конечно, очень важное значение, подчас радикально меняя ситуацию, но оценивать заявления о намерениях мы будем, конечно, сопоставляя эти заявления с конкретными делами. Президент Трамп, вот если говорить о заявлениях, вы упомянули расширение НАТО, он первый...
So basically, that was Lavrov giving a speech. If you don't know, Lavrov is the foreign minister of Russia. And basically what he said, I'll just sum it up. He said he thanked President Trump for acknowledging that one of the causes for the Ukraine war was the expansion of NATO. Okay, and this is what Russia has been waiting for. Has been waiting for a country that will, a nation or a leader that will actually come to table and take seriously the concerns that Russia had basically the end of the Cold War, but seriously since 2008 and 2014 and right up before the SMO began. So basically, I just wanted to share that with you because that's where they are. And that wasn't for really a global audience or some interview. That was in front of a domestic audience. So he was praising that, Let's see here. Oh. And last thing I wanted to touch on, which I'm going to do a short video on separate on the German elections, which is this Sunday. This is the projected seat. CDU 220, AFD 145, they're up 62, SPD 115 down 91, and the Greens down 24 seats to 94. I think that the AFD is going to actually overperform the polls, which are anywhere between 30 CDU, 20 CDU to like 28, 22, somewhere in that range. The reason why I think some of these last-minute polls are not catching up, especially with the Munich attack and the stabbing in Austria, among other things. Maybe some of these people are getting a resistance as they see the U.S. kind of backing off of Ukraine. Might not give AfD that. I'm not sure, but I'm going to do a video out on that. That being said, I just wanted to wrap up with those pieces of information for my last video of the week, except for the I'm going to put out a German election video just to give you a quick background on that a little bit later today. We'll keep an eye now that the confirmations are done. That's really awesome. And then we'll continue seeing what Doge does over the weekend, any updates in the Ukraine war or the peace negotiations that might come out. Any more firings or layoffs, and we're going to start really paying attention to these Senate and House budget resolutions. I really didn't like what came out of the Senate last night on the vote, and they voted down Paul's amendment. I mean, they got to really start cutting here. They really do. But anyway, you can follow me at X at PatriotPlanner1, my getter at PatriotPlanner. And if you like this video, please like, follow, and share. Really appreciate it. And keep an eye out for my German election video. Have a good night.